The Grant Accountability and Transparency Act governs all portions of the grant-making process, from the time of application through the time of grant agreement. Prior to the institution of GATA, every award-making agency handled the grant-making process in a different way. This was incredibly confusing considering that there are approximately 1,250 different grant programs that are administered in Illinois, and approximately 35,000 grants were issued every single year. There were almost 6,000 grantees receiving those awards, and of those grantees, 83% of them had an award from more than one state agency, and in some cases, that included up to 15 different agencies. That meant that there were nearly 8,000 duplications in common requirements. Consequently, the idea of standard grant-making procedures across all grant-making agencies within the state of Illinois was formulated in 2010. GATA is based on 2 CFR 200, which is the federal guidance overseeing the administration of grants within the federal government. The purpose then of GATA is to provide the development of a coordinated and non-redundant process for the provision of effective and efficient oversight throughout all agencies that provide grants in Illinois. In this way, we are ensuring quality programs, limiting fraud, waste, and abuse, and defining the purpose, scope, applicability, and the responsibilities in the life cycle of a grant. GATA created numerous uniform policies and templates for use by all agencies across the state of Illinois. These policies and templates were utilized in your application process, and others will be utilized in the administrative process. The GATA process begins at the GATA web portal. The portal provides a wealth of information for anyone who is considering applying for a grant in the state of Illinois. First, it explains what grants are available. There's a listing of the catalog of state financial assistance that tells you all the different kinds of grants that have been made by the state of Illinois. And then it lists the Notice of Funding Opportunities. The Notice of Funding Opportunity notes whether or not an application is available for that specific grant at this specific time. The first step in getting a grant is pre-qualification on the portal. And one of the good things about GATA is you only have to do this once a year. The portal will also tell you who has received a grant in the past, listing all executed grants, and it will also tell you who can't get a grant because they may be on the state debarred or suspended list or part of the Comptroller's Offset Management Information Control System. The next piece in the GATA process is the Internal Control Questionnaire. It is completed once by each individual entity and must be completed on an annual basis based on the state's fiscal year, beginning in July of every year. The Internal Control Questionnaire looks at the many pieces that are utilized in administering a grant, including the accounting system, budget controls, cost principles, your audit, organizational governance, property standards, procurement standards, subrecipient monitoring, and fraud, waste, and abuse. Once you have completed the Internal Control Questionnaire and submitted it, it will go to the cognizant agency for review. The cognizant agency is determined based on who has provided the most amount of funds to your specific entity over the last several years. The GATA process has several other major components. The first of these is the Uniform Application for State Grant Assistance. It is the same application for every grant that you are applying for, no matter which agency is overseeing the administration of that grant. It provides us basic information about the entity who is making the application. Each program requests additional information that is specific to the needs of their program. That program application then is usually on the agency program website. Additionally, you must complete a GATA budget. The GATA budget is the same no matter what agency is overseeing the specific grant program. The merit review process is outlined in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. In that Notice of Funding Opportunity, it specifically tells you what points go to which types of activities, and what is necessary to be outlined and included in the application. Each application is then reviewed by at least 2 reviewers. Moving on to the pre-award process. Once the decision has been made that you will receive a grant, we provide you with a Notice of State Award Finalist, or NOSAF. Now, I should let you know that not every agency utilizes the NOSAF, but we have found it to be a useful tool to identify the outstanding conditions that must be completed prior to the time of grant agreement. This includes the Internal Control Questionnaire. You've probably already completed this at the time of application, but we want to make certain that you have an ICQ that is current for this specific fiscal year. We also ask you to complete a Programmatic Risk Assessment, or PRAC. We provide the information about how to complete this risk assessment shortly after the time of NOSAF. It must be completed by the entity and those having oversight of financial and performance requirements for the specific grant. We look to see if you have completed the conflict of interest and mandatory disclosures appropriately, and if not, we ask you to redo them. We also identify what environmental review requirements must be completed according to state or federal law. And finally, we look at other special grant conditions. In the case of Rebuild Illinois grants, this may include the establishment of goals for the Business Enterprise Program. Once all NOSAF conditions have been met, then we issue a Notice of State Award. The Notice of State Award is created by the grant manager and instituted in the GATA system. It's approved by the director, and then the grantee will receive a system-generated email letting you know that the NOSA is ready for acceptance. You want to make certain that the administrator is listed in the grantee's record as a contact so that they receive the NOSA. Once you receive the NOSA, the grantee must accept it. After you have accepted the NOSA, you must select an indirect cost rate. Previously, you made a selection in what is known as the CAR system. The CAR system has now been updated to the GATA Centralized Indirect Cost Rate System. The best thing about this change is that your selection will be made once, not annually, and will be in effect until you make a decision to change it. This slide shows a video for the process for indirect cost rate selection. The next piece is the grant agreement. The grant agreement comes after the NOSA is accepted and after your CAR submission. You will want to make certain that you review the grant agreement, all of the exhibits, and the budget certification. Now, the grant agreement must be signed by the authorized official or designee if applicable. In the case of units of local government, the authorized official must be the chief elected official. You'll want to return the entire signed agreement and the GATA budget, if it needs to be corrected, to the grant manager.
Hi, this is Kara Kozad, and I am the Housing Rehabilitation Program Manager, and I am now going to talk about the post-grant agreement, only dealing with housing rehab grants. So this is housing specific, and after the executed grant agreement, there's the potential applicant and contractor solicitation that takes place. So an invitation to apply must be distributed. A notice in the local paper and letters to households in the project area must state that the place and the time that the staff will be available to assist with that application process. Next, administrative staff should have a local presence and provide adequate time for all of those households in your project area to come in and apply for assistance. So that's why it's very imperative that we have the exact time and dates out there for everybody to see. The contractor ad should also specify pre-qualified requirements and contact information to obtain contract application. Continuing on, the eligibility requirements for housing rehab recipients are single-family, owner-occupied, proof of ownership, and homeowner insurance. Everything must be re-verified prior to your actual rehab construction. Eligible income verification of all persons in the household the age of 18 or older must be re-verified prior to the rehab construction. This is very important. A lot of times I've been finding when I come out to do monitoring that all of this information was only verified one time at the initial intake. This needs to be re-verified before the start of construction. Also, here's the form that you can use. It's the updated income chart, and there's the link. Continuing on with housing rehabilitation specific items, the prioritization of housing applicants. Once all households in the project area have had the opportunity to apply, prioritization must be given to those with very low income, the elderly and handicapped households, and 51% of all your points given on applications must be to the above criteria. As soon as an applicant is eligible to participate in the program, please take photos of the home and send the information to ID&R Historic Preservation for the clearance of the Tier 2 process. What they need to do is they need that information before they can start that. And the earlier you get that information to DNR, the better.